Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and thank you for being with us tonight for this very special opportunity to honor a number of people on whose accomplishments we all have rested and stood. So I'm very delighted that you're all here. I would also like to thank our jazz trio and Jeff Jarvis. They're great, aren't they? Big round of applause for Jeff Jarvis and his trio and CJO. They do great work. I saw Jeff stick his head in the door back there, but don't know where he went. As many of you know, the Legacy Lecture was started in the 1990s as a way for educators to address the university community as if it were their last lecture, sharing personal reflections, beliefs, values, and visions as educators. And I am thrilled that we are bringing it back this year. I actually used to really enjoy going to those myself, and I have some fond memories of several of those that really stick in my mind. And I'm particularly thrilled we're bringing it back this year with our former provost and president, Don Parr, as our distinguished speaker. Can I have a round of applause for Don Parr? You'll hear from him a little bit later. This year, for the first time, we are recognizing our retiring faculty at this event. May we have a round of applause for them, too? And we really do stand on their shoulders. At this moment, before I begin, I would like to invite our new president, President Jane Connolly, to the podium to say a few words.
Thank you very much, and I'll say just a few words. I think the title of Legacy Lecture is so apropos to inviting our retirees because, as the provost alluded to, said, we're here, our university is here because of you. We benefit, your legacy is our success. And I'm so aware of that every day as I walk around campus and I see the programs, the buildings, the trees, the flowers. I understand the legacy of all that has gone before, and I know that the influence of the faculty has been absolutely paramount in that. And so I'm delighted to be here and have a chance to meet with you, and can't wait to learn more about you, because I understand we're going to do a lot of talking about you. So that's great. And welcome everybody else here. Thank you.
Thank you, President Connolly. Now it is my privilege to recognize our retiring faculty. Now here's a number for you which is hard to believe. Altogether, they have a total of more than, can you guess, 480 years of service at CSULB. How many class preparations, lectures, and so on. How many students mentored? How many students graduated? How many students on to successful careers and to prosperous lives does that represent? It's an astonishing legacy. The number of lives that they have touched is just immeasurable. And as you hear about some of their accomplishments, I think you will agree with me that what they have achieved during their time is truly impressive. I do want to caution you that because we want to say something about each person, our program is a little long. Please bear with me, because I think in the spirit of recognizing these wonderful people that it's worth our being here for them. Most of them are now in the FERP program and are still very active in their departments. They have raised the bar for those who are just starting their careers here. We're very fortunate that our junior faculty members have such outstanding mentors. And in fact, in some of my conversations earlier, that's what it was about bringing the junior faculty along. We really do stand on the shoulders of giants. And I am going to ask each faculty member to stand when I call your name. We have a little gift for you, and we'll all share a round of applause for you. And I will start by James Archie. Dr. Archie is from Biological Sciences. He started at CSULB in 1989. He's the department's resident herpetologist and biostatistician. He's probably the world's leading expert on the western fence lizard. You know, the one you've seen on hikes in your yard that that goes up and down and has the blue belly. He's known to drive for hours on dirt roads to catch lizards in the desert. And I am told that he's responsible for most of the dents in the old Suburban. Please join me in a round of applause for Dr. Archie. Dr. Luis Arroyo, a personal friend of mine, is a professor and former chair of the Department of Chicano and Latino Studies. He has taught courses on the history of Mexicans in the United States, U.S. ethnic and immigration history, and multicultural perspective in United States society, to name a few. He has written many articles and books on the history of Mexican workers in the U.S. and served on numerous committees and organizations, including the Academic Senate. He's joined today, I happen to know, by his lovely wife and two very handsome sons. They're here somewhere. Oh, there they are over there. Please join me in a round of applause for Dr. Luis Arroyo. Richard Burkmeyer. The horn guy, came to campus in 1985 and over the years has taught trumpet, coached chamber music, and taught history seminars and general education courses. He served as vice chair of the music department and director of the California Institute for Preservation of Jazz. Something that's not here is you and I were associate deans together at one time in our past, which is where I first got to know him. He's also the musical director of the Americas Brass Band, Southern California's most active professional brass ensemble. In addition to chairing the curriculum committee and writing the conservatory's accreditation reports, he's been known to cook food for receptions, assist with building shelves, and lend a hand when large items need to be moved. Please join me in a round of applause for Dr. Burkmeyer. And he, I know, is joined by his wife, Lori, who's here somewhere, who also worked for the university for many years. There she is back there. Wonderful person, too. Now Norma Chinchilla, another friend of mine. I'm pleased to recognize Norma from the Department of Sociology. Professor of Sociology and Women's Studies, served as Department Chair of Sociology for 12 years, did an outstanding job in that role. As a dedicated mentor to faculty, she continues to inspire and shape a new generation of university scholars and citizens. In addition, she has been recognized for her scholarship and activism in relation to Central America and immigration issues and trafficking issues and a whole host of things that I happen to know about. Please join me in a round of applause for Dr. Norma Chinchilla. Phil Chong from the Department of Management and Human Resource Management. Dr. Chong came to CSULB in 1986. He's been a leader within the department and college, having served as interim associate dean for the College of Business, chair of management, HRM department, and coordinator of operations management program. His mentoring of junior faculty, working with them on research projects, is well known. In his teaching, he always emphasized critical thinking and discouraged learning by rote. He is known as a valuable colleague and a true mentor to his students. Please join me in a round of applause for Dr. Chong. And now Joanne Gordon. It is my pleasure to recognize her. Dr. Gordon has served, yes, please, has served 25 years in the Theater Arts Department, including 9 as department chair. She directed one of the first plays that CalRep performed and went on to become the artistic director, shaping CalRep's mission and creating innovative, evocative, poetic, and it doesn't say it here, but cutting-edge literature, theater. She has directed hundreds of students and professional actors in an array of plays, musicals, and original works. Her accolades include, get this, 5 Drama Log Awards, a Los Angeles Critics' Choice Award, and being at the helm when CalRep season was named Best of the Year by the LA Times. Please join me in a round of applause for Dr. Gordon. David Huckabee, in biological science, arrived in 1973. I am told by the department chair, Desi Underwood, that students leave Dr. Huckabee's vertebra zoology courses commenting on his exceedingly dry humor and his terrifying attention to detail. If any of you served on a curriculum committee, you know exactly what we mean. Dr. Huckabee served as the department's principal undergraduate advisor for decades and is known for his encyclopedic, good word, memory of all the various degree programs, varieties of introductory biology course series, and university history. Please join me in a round of applause for Dr. Huckabee. Catherine K.J. James came to the Department of Rec and Leisure Studies in 1993, and you're retired? I don't get that. She served in a variety of roles, including department chair, coordinator of the Outdoor Recreation Certificate Program, and graduate coordinator. She recently initiated courses in access and equity of park resources and wildlife and wildfire management in urban proximate areas, something we really need in California these days. She has received numerous campus awards, including the university's Distinguished Faculty Teaching Award. Please join me in wishing her all the best. William Margolis joined the Mathematics and Statistics Department in 1969. At that time, we were known as California State College at Long Beach. During his tenure, Dr. Margolis was responsible for curriculum development in computer science and taught pure and applied math to graduate and undergraduate students, and he served as department chair from 1983 to 84. In addition, Dr. Margolis had Department of Defense top secret clearance, and if he told us what he worked on, he'd have to shoot us, and worked with several aerospace companies on projects like the Minuteman missile and the Global Positioning Satellite System. Please join me in a round of applause for Dr. Margolis. Thomas Ray. Didn't make it, did he? Sorry to say. Victor Rodriguez. Is a professor in the Department of Chicano and Latino Studies. He is an expert on racialization of Latino identity and its impact on political behavior. He has taught courses that focus on social inequality, something our country is seeing a lot of these days. He is a nationally known diversity consultant who works with universities on infusing multicultural objectives in the curriculum and recruiting and retaining faculty of color. His interest in social issues and social activism has won him recognition and a significant publication record. Please join me in a round of applause for Dr. Rodriguez. Ralph Rozenek. Whom I usually see in the locker room, by the way, has been educating students on the importance of physical activity and its impact on health and well-being since the 1980s. He has served on numerous committees, including the University Institutional Review Board Committee. He was also the graduate coordinator for exercise science over 5 years, director of the undergraduate exercise physiology laboratory, and the fitness sports assessment laboratory, which he helped develop. Dr. Rozenek takes pride in providing students with the best and most current information available. Please join me in a round of applause for Dr. Rozenek. Al Russo came to CSULB as a lecturer in 1983 and became a full-time professor in physical therapy in 1988. He taught courses in physiology and pharmacology and also served as a research advisor for the Master of Physical Therapy and Kinesiology students. His passion for research led him to take the position as Director of Research Compliant in 2011, and in that role, I happen to know, he became famous for being so helpful and so facilitative for both faculty and student projects. He served full-time in this role until he entered the Faculty Early Retirement Program in the fall of 2013. The department is pleased to have him teaching again. As Dr. Russo likes to say, laissez les bons temps rouler. Let the good times roll. You already applauded, but applaud again. Jose Sanchez H. is an expert on Latin American cinema. Came to the Department of Film and Electronic Arts in 1988. In collaboration with the Film Archive of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, of which he's a member, I understand, Dr. Sanchez has worked to preserve and restore important and underappreciated films from Latin America. And he organized, along with Dr. Chinchilla, the Interdisciplinary Latin American Studies Film Festival every fall semester at CSULB for more than a decade. Dr. Sanchez is involved with the arts as a filmmaker and practitioner. He has an upcoming documentary about artist and CSULB faculty member Dominic Cretera. Please join me in a round of applause for Dr. Sanchez. Harold Cesky joined the Department of Romance, German, Russian Languages and Literatures in 1986. He has spent a lot of his academic career, energy, and time educating students, faculty, and the community at large about the Russian language and cultures. His research focuses on 19th century Russian literature, primarily Tolstoy and Turgenev. He has served as director of the Russian program and has organized numerous film screenings, festivals, and conferences and study abroad trips, including the Russian Literature Festivals on campus. He's also known for organizing numerous educational summer trips to Russia, one of which I hope to participate in one of these days. Please join me in a round of applause for Dr. Cesky. Nancy Schiele joined the English department in 2001. She has served as an assistant chair of English and has been a leader in the liberal studies program, developing curricula for courses to prepare K-8 teachers. Dr. Schiele's research on 19th and 20th century American literature and ethnic writers has taken her to many different parts of the world. She has traveled to and written about Rwanda and Cyprus, been awarded Fulbright fellowships, and established collaborations between our campus and schools in these countries. In addition, her research on American painter Agnes Pelton has been featured in the Smithsonian publication. Please join me in a round of applause for Dr. Schiele. Ray Wang came to the electrical engineering department in 1985. He has taught many courses, including computer programming, circuit analysis, and digital circuit design. His research areas are related to the courses he has taught and particularly involve the evolving technology in digital circuit design and computer applications. 2 degree programs, the Bachelor of Science in Electronics Engineering Technology and the Bachelor of Science in Computer Engineering Technology, are the result of his efforts at CSULB. Please join me in a round of applause for Dr. Wang. Tim Shea, professor of Chinese Studies and former chair of the Department of Asian and Asian American Studies, is known as a gifted instructor who established a study abroad program for CSULB students at Shanghai International Studies University and participated in training advanced Chinese specialists for the United States Department of Defense. His publications include books and articles on using computers to teach Chinese. He created one of the most popular websites among Chinese teachers and learners with over, get this, 3.5 million hits. This year, Dr. Shea received a Technology and Chinese Language Teaching Lifetime Achievement Award for his distinguished service. Please join me in a round of applause for Dr. Shea. Now, let's give all of our retiring faculty members one more round of applause. A standing ovation from your colleagues. And I personally want to thank you for your dedication and commitment to our students and to this university. Most of you are in the FERT program, so I still expect to see you around campus and still teaching. After you finish that, I hope you will continue to maintain a strong connection with the university that you have helped to create and shape. And I do truly believe that those of us now and the generations that come after us stand on your shoulders. It's my own personal belief that this university has always had a kind of geographic advantage and was able to attract faculty members of a caliber, in a sense, punching above our weight. And you are they. And that has what has made us such an outstanding institution. So I thank you personally from my heart for that. Thank you. One more round of applause, please. And now we will take a short break before we begin the legacy lecture from Don Para. And I would, however, at this moment, like to ask all of the retiring faculty to join me on stage for a group photo, and the two of you also. So where's Dave, our famous photographer? You know, take a bathroom break, grab some food, whatever, but be back in about 10 minutes. Good evening once again, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for returning. This is, what we're about to hear is something I'm very much looking forward to. As I mentioned earlier, I had been to quite a few of the Legacy Lectures in their first incarnation, and it's just such a wonderful thing to hear a mind at work and one summing up such important things about life and career and purpose and meaning. And knowing Don Parra as I do, I'm convinced that what we're about to hear will be a particularly special version of that. So I'm just delighted. Don is known for his integrity and for his work ethic. I think one of our remarks about retirees was they'd make the coffee, move the chairs. Don would always make the coffee, move the chairs, anything like that. He was really always there to help in whatever way needed to get done. And he was a great mentor for me. I learned a tremendous amount from him. So it is really my deep personal pleasure to invite Don Parra to the stage for a legacy lecture.
Dave, thank you for that introduction. I miss working with you every day, my friend. And thanks to Dan O'Connor, Cecile Lindsay, Terry Allen, and the others who give me the honor of giving this legacy lecture. Thanks to President Jane Connolly for her leadership. Long Beach State is clearly in very good hands with President Connolly. And greetings to all of you. It's so nice to see so many friends and familiar faces. Thank you all for being here this evening. And as I look at the retirees who are here, you know, just about every one I can talk about some story or something that we did together or some interactions that we had. But you know, if I started down that road, we'd be here for a long time, and it would be fun for me, but maybe not so much fun for all of you. It's an honor to be asked to give a legacy lecture. You know that you heard they started in 1992, and they've been off and on and have not happened in the last 8 years. As you've already heard as well, linking the legacy lecture with an event honoring recent retirees is, in my opinion, most appropriate. It's the faculty and staff retirees, from those who retired recently to those who retired some time ago, who built the foundation of what is now Long Beach State University. Congratulations to the faculty retirees, and thanks for making a career, and I hope a life, at Long Beach State. The faculty are the lifeblood of the university. Winston Churchill said, "A living is what you get, a life is what you give." You have all given. You have all been a part of creating this great university, and you've all been central to this incredible accomplishments that create this legacy. As you know, I retired last July. Sandy and I have been at our home in the North Woods in Michigan since leaving Long Beach. This is the first time we've been back in California in about 4 months. The area, I was born and raised in Detroit. Sandy she lived several places. She went to high school on the western shore of Michigan. We met at music school when we were both undergrads. And I have recollections of going to my Italian grandparents' cottage that was kind of up in the central part of the state. Sandy's family also rented a cottage every summer on the shore of Lake Michigan. So this house that we have, it's a small house that we have in the woods, gives us some of that reminder. Again, we've been there for about 4 months. We're going back Saturday. We'll be there for another few weeks, and then we'll be back in California. California is still home, and next summer we'll probably spend some less time there. Where we are right now, the air is fresh, the population is small. It's a big tourist area. All the tourists are gone. You know, it'll grow and shrink depending on how much snow there is and how good the skiing is. And it's also a place where when you ask people how far, they actually tell you how many miles, not how long with traffic and without traffic. It's also pretty cold there right now. As unseasonably hot as it's been here this year, it's been unseasonably cold where we've been. I'd like to take 20 degrees there and bring it here, and everybody would be happy. But we wanted to spend the first fall of my retirement. My wife's been retired for about 8 years, watching the fall come in, watching the trees turn color and that kind of thing. We're also, they've been beautiful colors. We've enjoyed that very much. But we're also now dealing with freeze warnings because already there's, at night the temperature dips too low. You got to do something with the plants, otherwise they're going to be frostbitten. My remarks tonight are going to center on the themes that you have heard me and many others talk about in the past several years. If you've been around long enough, you heard our two previous presidents, Robert Maxson and King Alexander, talk about these things. And in the short time that Jane Connolly has been president, I've certainly read and heard her speak very effectively about the same things, same themes. Why Long Beach State University matters and why this campus is important. I will... In this talk, I will touch on why we owe a debt of gratitude to the faculty and staff who created the foundation for this institution as it continues to build its legacy. This is a legacy of a very young, very underfunded, but very dynamic university. This is a university that counts, a university that matters, and a university that transforms and changes lives. A university that is consistently recognized for its focused mission on student success, consistently recognized for its innovation in support of its mission, and a university that delivers a high-quality, low-cost education. A few weeks ago, some friends of ours from University of Michigan, they're friends that we met in Kalamazoo, invited us to come down for a football game in Ann Arbor. Now, I got my doctorate at Michigan State, but I promised not to wear my green and white, Anyway, so we went down to this game at Michigan, and if you follow anything about football, Michigan is not having a good year. Yes they are. I wasn't going to say that, but yes they are. Anyway, so they play in what they call the Big House. It's supposed to seat 112,000, but sometimes they get 115,000. There was only 102,000 in the stadium, and they were very disappointed because it's the lowest crowd they've had in 15 years or something, at any rate. But a number of things struck me. First of all, and this is my own personal bias, marching band. There is no earthly value to marching bands whatsoever. There is none. I was in a marching band in college. In high school, fortunately, I played football, so I didn't have to be in the marching band, except for 4th of July parades and that kind of stuff. But it's a major waste of time, talent, energy, and money. And it does nothing to educate a music student or a music educator. Nothing. It's one of the reasons that I was so happy in 1983 that this campus had the foresight to discontinue football. Now, I love football. I watch the games. I have nothing against that. It's just that it's so damn expensive. I looked out on the field when we were at this game, and I know that the head coach there, Brady Hoke, I think he makes $2.4 million a year. And by major college standards, he's being disrespected, At LSU, where King Alexander is, Les Miles makes $4.4 million, I think. As a matter of fact, I told some of you the story that King related a number of months ago. When King was at the Board of Supervisors meeting, their Board of Trustees meeting, to be officially approved as president, and they talked about the compensation package and everything. King was sitting in the audience, and they had their public comment period. Well, the first person who got up to talk was a guy that said, "I want to talk about a salary." And King said, "Oh, God, here we go again. All the issues we've had in the CSU with presidential salaries." But it wasn't about King. It was about the offensive coordinator for the football team, who was making twice as much as King was, So King said good for him to kind of sit back and just watch it was going. At any rate, so we're in the Michigan Stadium. They call it the Big House. It so happened that I was in that stadium once before in high school. It was 50 years, almost 50 years, I think, to the month that I had been in there. And I looked at, the football staff is about $10 million. All these people, their marching band, which I've already given you my opinion about marching band, at the halftime, and of course Michigan has two huge screens, two huge video screens, and they put factoids up there about Michigan. They do a very good job. Michigan is a highly regarded Research One university. They have one issue though, and that is it's kind of a I guess you'd call it a scientific issue. While the rest of the world has understood for hundreds of years that the Earth revolves around the sun, at Ann Arbor, they really believe it revolves around Ann Arbor. At any rate, Michigan's a great school. The point, I'm rambling through all this to make a point, and that is they announced and put up on their big screen that in a few years, they would have 400,000 alumni. Michigan was established in 1817. They've been in business almost 200 years. Very distinguished institution. We're going to hit 300,000 this May. The CSU will hit 3 million this May. So it struck me that, and I know the comparison isn't absolute. I mean, I get all that, but it just struck me that it's an indicator of what this campus does that's so important. Why does Long Beach State matter? Why are we important? What is our impact on the borders beyond our campus, and why should we be proud to be associated with Long Beach State University? What is our legacy, and how is it evolving? What is the evidence that we matter? What are the markers that demonstrate our growth? What are the indicators that we can point to show that we have a straightforward, powerful mission to graduate students, and that we focus our limited funding directly on fulfilling that mission? The prime indicator of our success, the prime indicator of our legacy, our most important product, if you will allow me to use a commercial term, is our alumni. The quality of our alumni, the impact they have in our city, the current mayor of Long Beach is a grad here, the impact on the region, state, and internationally is direct evidence of the caring, skill, and dedication of the faculty, past and present, of the faculty supported by the staff. We talk commonly about our alumni in numbers, the number of graduates and filling the needs of more BAs and graduate students to keep our country moving forward in an ever-shrinking world and a global environment. It is also the impact on each individual student that is part of our legacy, how we shape and form each of these people. Our alumni, our legacy, our alumni who go out into the world and the impact they have beyond our borders. Long Beach State is a student-centered campus. This was not always true. For those of you who were around in the late 80s and early 90s, it was a very ugly time. We didn't talk much about student success then. I don't know that we talked about it at all, and it showed. The graduation rates in the early 90s were abysmal. We had 6-year graduation rates in the 20%, 22%, 23% range. It was actually embarrassing to think about how poorly we went about our business, how poorly we planned, and that the student was the one who really was the loser in all of that. They were not at the center of our conversations. That has changed and changed dramatically. It is part of the legacy of this university. We have come a long way from graduation rates of 22 or 23% to graduation rates of over 60%. I know it's a danger to begin to mention any individuals, but since I am no longer a regular on campus, I will mention one whose impact on campus and our mission and student success is more than significant. A person who began to ask the questions and raise the issues and create the data that was needed. A person who has had an outsized impact on this institution and directly and indirectly on hundreds of thousands of students. That's Dave Dowell. There has been no greater champion of students and student success than Dave. Thank you, Dave. It was an honor working with you for those years. And remember that graduating students in a timely manner is just not about numbers. If a student graduates even one semester early, They not only save a semester's fees, but they move on to the next phase of their life, be it entering the workforce or graduate school. And by graduating, they open a space for another student, begin the next phase of their lives in working toward a college education. CSULB is important because of our mission to graduate students with highly valued degrees. It may sound a bit corny, but that is exactly what higher education should be about. It's exactly what our country needs, both in terms of an educated citizenry and in providing an educated workforce. Long Beach State received more than 80,000 applications for admission for fall of 2014. I think fourth or fifth most of over 1,800 schools. Last May, during the last year, we graduated over 9,200 students, the largest graduating class in our history and among the top 20 in number in the country. We have gotten used to being recognized for many of our accomplishments and the impact of our people, our faculty, staff, and alumni have on this region, state, and nation. We are consistently in the top 5 in the number of applications for admission, as I just mentioned. We are consistently ranked by U.S. News and Rule Reports and Princeton Review in the top 5 or best in the West for our classification of institution. We are recognized for our Presidential Scholars Program, now in its 20th year. We are recognized as being among the top 15 schools in the country awarding bachelor's degrees to underrepresented minority students. We are among the top 12 students in the nation awarding degrees to Hispanics. Last year, 49er Athletics, for the 4th consecutive year, won the Big West Conference Commissioner's Cup. That's great. But what's even more important is that every one of the 18 sports was well above the required standards of graduation rates for student athletes. Those are student athletes. We are recognized again as being a GI-friendly, a military-friendly school by GI Jobs. And of course, though we hear about it a lot, its significance cannot be overstated. The Long Beach College Promise, a unique partnership between the Long Beach Unified School District, Long Beach City College, and Long Beach State that demonstrates in action as well as words that we understand that we must work together to create the workforce and educated citizenry for the future. The Long Beach College Promise has been recognized nationally and has been the subject of conferences in the U.S. Department of Education and the White House. It is a national model. Our deepest gratitude to our friends in Long Beach Unified School District and Long Beach City College and their 2 extraordinary leaders, Superintendent Chris Steinhauser and Superintendent and President Eloy Ortiz Oakley. We are all in this together. One cannot exceed without the other. In all these recognitions, there's a few things that are common. We have been recognized by national organizations for providing a high-quality education to a very diverse student population while being among the least expensive schools in the country. A high-quality, low-cost education. Last spring, we received an extremely significant recognition from a new ranking from Time Magazine. The ranking had a new set of metrics: accessibility, affordability, and graduation rates. And out of 1,800 institutions across the country, I think we were about 15th. A very significant recognition. The rating system is intended to provide prospective students and their families with information that will allow them to select schools that provide the best value. The Obama administration plans to link an institution's performance with federal financial aid. This is very good news for the CSU system in Long Beach State University. In addition, we feel rightful pride when our institution is recognized as a leader by the simple fact of this recognition. The value of the degree from Long Beach State grows, it increases. We are big, we are popular, we are diverse, we deliver a great education at a low cost, and this campus has a broad and deep impact well beyond our borders. We are in the business of human potential. We transform lives for our students, and at the same time, those who work on campus have their lives transformed as well. The student population we are educating on this campus and in the state right now is what the student population will look like across the country in the coming years. We are indeed a university of the 21st century. Another thing that demonstrates why this is an important institution and why we matter is the number of times in the last, I'll say 10 years, because I go back 26 years and some of those years weren't, so good, that we hear from employers regularly in graduate schools that our students are ready to enter the workforce. They're ready to go to graduate school. Our amazing students who see education as an opportunity, not entitlement. Our students who understand that the fees they pay do not purchase a degree, but purchase the opportunity to learn how to succeed. And half the students in the CSU pay very little to attend the CSU. Bottom line, This country and the world need more BAs and graduate degrees than are currently being produced. This should be a public policy issue of the highest importance. Other countries recognize this simple and very dramatic fact. This spring, the CSU will produce its 3 millionth graduate. Of the 23 campuses with 300,000 alumni, Long Beach State is 10% of the total. And speaking of the need for support for public higher education, may I offer a few words about public policy and state's public investment in higher education, a few words about the future. Nationally, we are in a 30-year decline in support for public higher education, in general, K through graduate school. As states divest in public higher education, the burden of the cost shifts to the student and their families. This has led to a national crisis, the student education loan debt. Nationally, student education loan debt, the amount that students in all sectors of education, public, private, for-profit, and specialty schools, is over $1 trillion. That's trillion with a T. Student loan debt is greater than the total credit card debt in this country, an amazing and alarming statistic. However, the California State University and Long Beach State are not part of the problem, though we regularly are bunched in with the offenders. Due to the robust amount of financial aid offered in the CSU, less than half our students, almost 2/3, graduate with no debt. The third of our students, about 34% actually, who graduate with college debt owe an average of $13,400. A great education at a low cost. Now that's return on investment. Some people tell us that education is a cost that the public cannot afford. Well, education is not a cost, but an investment. We know that, on average, a person with a college degree will make roughly $1 million more in a lifetime than a person with a high school degree or who has not finished college. And consider the following. Every day our economy becomes more knowledge-based. In this ever-expanding knowledge-based economy, just to keep pace with the growing need for workers with a college degree, California will need 1 million more people with a bachelor's degree in the next 10 years. California needs 60,000 more graduates a year than we are now producing. Since the CSU is responsible for over half the degrees awarded by all institutions in California, the CSU will need to increase its output of degrees by 30,000 each year. Also consider the importance to the state and nation of public higher education. There are 18 million students in higher education in this country, 3 million in California. Do the math. That means that 1 out of every 6 people in this country studying in higher education is studying in California. What happens here is important, and what happens here matters. The CSU, with almost 450,000 students, is the largest education system in the country. 1 out of every 10 people employed in the state is a graduate from a CSU campus. The numbers are very clear. If the CSU is not successful in graduating students, California cannot be successful. And if the CSU and California are not successful in graduating students, the nation cannot succeed. Obama's 2020 plan simply can't happen unless California is successful. The moral of this story is that what happens in what happens here stays here. That's not what this is about. What happens in California is vitally important to the rest of the country, and people need to pay attention. Let me share something that I heard a couple of months ago, an amazing statistic, and it's about California. You live here, like I do. We live here. We know that we don't commonly talk about comparing ourselves to other states, except when we talk about the funding we're not getting for education. But we talk about other countries because of how big we are. The coastal economy of California accounts for 11% of the total gross national product of the United States. That's an amazing statistic. The funding that the taxpayers give education, preschool through doctoral degrees, is not a cost, it's an investment. The cost will come in the future if we do not invest now. If we do not invest in the future, we will not do well in the future. Failure to support education, including higher education, has other costs, including increased unemployment. If you have a BA, the likelihood of being unemployed is less than half than it would be otherwise. And the time that you would expect to be unemployed would be half. Another cost of not having an educated workforce is the impact on social services and the dramatically increased likelihood of becoming involved in the criminal justice system. Then there is the simple issue of foregone tax revenue. A smaller tax base impacts us all. And just a couple of other factoids. Locally, The fiscal impact, the financial impact of Long Beach State on the local economy is $2.8 million a day. I want to talk a little bit about leadership and two presidents, because I think it was starting in the early 1990s, after the ugly time in the late 80s and early 90s, when budgets start to come back a little bit, and we started to grow and those kind of things, that the foundation that had been set by the faculty and staff who were here then began to be built on in a more robust and meaningful way. Bob Maxson and King Alexander. Bob Maxson was president for 10 years. In addition to initiating a campus program, a signature campus program, the President's Scholars, he caused the campus to believe in itself and to understand that CSULB is really a very special institution, an institution which is student-centered, but which understands that if faculty are not successful, no one can be successful. And he also reminded us that without the staff, the whole edifice falls. It takes a village to educate a student, and with 37,000 students and over 4,000 faculty and staff, CSULB is a small city. Bob Maxson also had three priorities: students, students, and students. When Bob Maxson retired, he was followed by King Alexander, who was president for 7 years. King was a national force in higher education, in national higher education, is a leading expert on education, finance, and policy. He was well known in our state capital and in Washington, D.C. He was well known to the Obama administration and Obama's domestic policy group. He was invited to the White House with, as one of only a handful of university presidents, to meet with President Obama and Education Secretary Arne Duncan. We remember King's two mantras: graduation begins today, and among the nation's best. It was a perfect fit for our statement of purpose. We graduate students with highly valued degrees. These two presidents set us on the course that we follow today. We know we are good, we know we are a special place, and we know that we change lives. Student success here is more than a slogan. It is central to who we are and how we work. And to these two presidents, we owe a great deal. I mention these two presidents because they set us on the course of putting students first, and for that direction and the path that they gave us. They set us on the course we follow today, and that was supported by everybody on campus. Student success is everybody's job, and that focus is certainly a central part of our legacy and who we are, and that will continue to grow. In my opinion, Jane Connolly has already demonstrated that she will continue to lead the university in being student-centered while moving the university to the next level. A few things about leadership. A few weeks ago, my wife and I, Sandy and I, had the opportunity to go to a lecture presentation by the grandson of Sir Ernest Shackleton, the guy who led the Antarctic expeditions, including the one that started in December of 1914 and did not end until the middle of 1917. People in his expedition did not set foot on ground for 497 days. It was a remarkable trip. They left the 5th of December, 1914, for South Georgia and the Antarctic. In January, 19th of January, their ship, the Endurance, was trapped in the ice. On the 24th of February, they gave up for the winter and said, we're just going to have to sit out the winter. Spring comes in September in the Antarctic. So in spring, they thought that they would be able to, the ice would begin to melt, move away, and they could proceed on their journey. Well, as the ice melted and shifted, it also crushed the hull of the Endurance, so their boat was gone. So in November of 2015, their boat sank. In the 24th of April in 1916, Shackleton and 7 other of the party of 28, the crew of 28, they put together a makeshift boat and set out on an 800-mile row to try to reach South Georgia and the whaling stations. It took them, they got there about May the 8th, but it took them almost a week to actually go ashore because the storms were so strong. They were afraid if they went in, they'd be smashed on the rocks. In August 2016, they finally got all the crew, they finally rescued all the crew. Again, 497 days without touching down, without setting foot on dry land. And Shackleton was considered an incredible leader for keeping they did not lose anybody. He was considered an incredible leader because he got everybody to return safely. There were interviews, of course, there's been a lot of books written, and they asked, what did he do? I mean, how did you folks all survive? And they said that Shackleton was the reason. And what did he do? Well, he consulted everyone. He was very inclusive. He treated everyone equally. He showed respect to everyone in their opinions. He was optimistic. Bob Maxon used to say that happiness is a personal decision, and Chancellor Tim White says that he is a pathological optimist. He always saw the bright side of things. I suppose once you started in that kind of a circumstance, once you started to look at things darkly, probably be the end of you. And he demonstrated concern for everyone by asking them each day how they were doing, what they needed, what they thought should be doing. He showed that he cared. You know, that's very much like how this campus has done its business, the legacy of how we do our business. We're consultative and inclusive. We treat people fairly. We show respect for opinions. We're certainly an optimistic group. There's so many times we had no reason really to be optimistic, but we did anyway and got through it, you know. And that's a testament to the faculty who are here, the faculty who've come before us, the staff, the administrators, and we demonstrate concern for everybody who's on this campus. We've commented on the faculty who've come before, how they help create the legacy of what this campus is. This also, of course, is shared with the vice presidents, the associate vice presidents, the deans, department chairs, and all the staff. It's really an amazing institution that we are created and that will continue. A few final comments before I close. A university can only be as great as its friends and alumni allow it to be. With ever-decreasing state funding, there is an ever-increasing need and a very bleak future for the state, which will impact student graduation if we don't continue to bring in outside funds. We're only 65 years old, but it's time we're having our first comprehensive campaign. Participate, even if you only give a little bit, but do it because it's the right thing to do. I was trading a few emails with Dave Dowell about legacy, and he sent me a brief description of our legacy, which I thought is usually with Dave is right on the mark. Now, my opinion about this is very biased. However, it's completely accurate and highly informed. The legacy that has been left by faculty administrators is this. During the years these faculty, staff, and administrators were here, Cal State Long Beach transformed from a typical state college that was something of a generic copy of state colleges everywhere to an intentional institution guided by plans, using evidence, focused on student success, committed to ensuring that a CSULB degree opens doors to opportunities, partnering with the surrounding community, acting locally but thinking globally, and dedicated to excellence despite limited resources. As an institution, we are learning to see ourselves not as a state college, not as an R1 light, but as a new, great, urban, student-centered university, a university for the global future. That is our legacy. That is a legacy that everyone in this room has helped us create and will keep pushing us to in the future. It's our legacy, but we all know this is very early in the history of this very young, very dynamic university. The best is yet to come. I'll close with a quote from Brian Andreas. I don't know how many of you know Brian Andreas. He's a very quirky poet, kind of a philosopher. He writes in very kind of jagged writing, and he almost always illustrates his pieces with a kind of a stick figure. It's kind of like between Picasso and second grade, you know. And he commonly writes poems that are one sentence. So, someday the light will shine like the sun through my skin, and they will say, "What have you done with your life?" And though there are many moments I think I will remember, in the end, I will be proud to say I was one of us. We have all been very fortunate to be one of us at Long Beach State University. Thank you for the opportunity to give this legacy lecture. It is an honor to have been asked. Congratulations to our most recent faculty retirees. I hope you know how much what you did for all these years has impacted this institution and the tens of thousands of students, your lives that you have, whose lives you have touched, the lives you changed forever, and the impact that those alumni have had in the state, in our country, in the world. People have asked me if I miss being here, and the answer is, yeah, I do. I kind of don't miss the day-to-day, but it's the people. It's the people. The people are why Long Beach State matters. The people are why Long Beach State is important. And the people are why we have the legacy that we do, the legacy that we are creating. And it's why we've accomplished so much. All in all, we are doing quite well for an institution that opened its doors only 65 years ago in 2 double-wide trailers. Go Beach!